Good afternoon. This is, in a way, one of the most difficult speeches I've ever given. And you have to understand the reason why that is kind of significant is I'm an attorney. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my mom. But first, I have to thank Judith Stein and these wonderful people at the Center for Medicare Advocacy. Because I truly believe that it was through a divine intervention that our paths crossed. I want to tell you a true story that happened in San Antonio. About my mother, who in December of 2013 suffered a left brain stroke. Before I get too far into that aspect of the story, I wanted to tell you just a little bit about her. She's always been my hero, because when I was in the first grade, in 1963, I was diagnosed with having learning disabilities, and my mother and father were told, and this was at a Catholic school, they were told back then, your son is a very sweet little boy. He's very kind, but he's slow. Don't expect much from him. But, and this was from a Catholic school, okay? But you had 5 children, is what they told my mother. And so God blessed you with 4 normal ones. My mom taught me how to read and write. And she never stopped believing in me. Anyway, I know, because I had just 5 minutes, I'm sorry. She suffered a left brain stroke a few days after Christmas, in December of 2013. And shortly after that, when we were in the hospital, I didn't leave her side. And her neurologist came, and he said, Gabe, the news is bad. It's a left brain stroke. She lost her ability to swallow, and she can't speak. But your mother's vital signs are very good. She's very strong. I can tell you, I'm a neurologist, and if I thought your mother was a hopeless case, I would tell you, son, she's hopeless. I've had to tell families that many times in my career, but I'm not telling you that. I'm telling you, save her life. Let us insert a PEG tube so that we can feed her with liquid nutrients, and then she'll be strong enough to where she can go through physical rehabilitation and let the process go forward. We have no idea how far she will progress. That's going to be a function of many, many variables, including one of which is God, okay? But that is my advice. And I said, doctor, I agree with that. I signed the papers to authorize the insertion of the PEG tube. About a couple of days later, a different doctor appeared on my mother's wing. I'd never seen him, and he'd never come in to talk to me. He only talked to staff, and he was looking through records. And finally, after a day or so, he came into our room, and he said, I'm Dr. So-and-so, and I want to talk to the person who's responsible for making the decisions for Eleanor Quintanilla. And I spoke up, and I said, that'll be me, doctor. He said, okay, what are your plans for your mother? And I explained about the PEG tube and how we're going to go through rehab. And as soon as I said the PEG tube, he started shaking his head violently. No. He said, should not do that. Your mother has plateaued. Now, I was totally brand new to the entire world of the plateau, okay? But I soon found out. And I said, I beg your pardon? He said, I've talked to the physical therapists who have been dealing with your mother here on the floor for the past few days. She's not making any more progress. She's already plateaued. So this whole thing about the peg tube and doing that, no. I have a different course of action for you. Now, he was representing the Medicare Advantage insurance company. He said, this is what you ought to do. What you ought to do is instead you should let me refer her to our hospice division, and we will keep your mother comfortable with medicine, with morphine, and we will allow nature to take its course. And I looked at him, and he said, and this was what the kicker was. He said, take your memories of your mother and keep them firmly in your mind and remember her the way that she used to be. I said, Doctor, you're fired. Get out of this room right now. And we went ahead and we're going to go forward with a peg tube. But, and I know, I'm sorry, I hope not to run over. But that night, I had my laptop computer, and I was determined I was going to find a way to get my mother away from that Medicare Advantage insurance company. I said, if I have to stay up all night, if I have to stay up for a week doing nothing but legal research, I'll find a way to do it. And as I was doing legal research, I discovered Jimmel versus Sibelius, which ruled that the plateau standard was illegal. And I almost fell out of my chair. A doctor wanted me to put my mother in the grave on an illegal standard. I called up the insurance company. There are too many women in this group. So I have to just say, I was fairly animated. After my mother had gotten out of the hospital, they transferred her to the nursing facility for the rehab, and the people there told us about them. They said, well, you know, she's not going to be here very long. And I said, well, what do you mean? She said, well, they come here every Tuesday because that's when they plateau all their patients out. And I said, wait a minute, what do you mean? And she says, every Tuesday they come in and they go through the therapy records, and as soon as they find somebody that's plateaued, that they get them out like that. And I go, oh, no, they're not. So for a while, I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone. Remember the old Twilight Zone where there's only one sane person and everybody else is crazy? Well, I'm holding Jimmel versus Sibelius, you know, like a shield. And I am going around talking to doctors, talking to insurance people, talking to physical therapists, and a lot of them acted as though they had never heard of this. And finally, it got to the point where I basically wrote the insurance company perhaps like a 20-page letter tracing the elements of Jimmel versus Sibelius from the inception all the way through, and telling them how they have not been following it, and how that doctor, my first exposure was the doctor who wanted me to put my mother in the San Fernando cemetery because she had plateaued after 6 days of being in the hospital. Now, my life changed, my mother's life changed. I became an advocate. One thing the doctor didn't know when he was talking to me is I'm a litigator. He didn't know that I've been in federal court many times in my career. He didn't know that I went to the University of Texas Law School, was one of the law review editors. He didn't realize I'd been in state court. He didn't know that I sued people for a living. I I didn't sue them. I didn't have to. After we got through voluminous correspondence, they finally saw the errors of their ways, and my mother's therapy has continued. I reached out to this precious woman who has helped me every step of the way. I cannot tell you what this organization means to me or what Judith Stein means to me, other than the fact that she helped me save my mother's life. I think we have a short film. A few.
Yes, thank you. Now we'll see your mom when she was able to continue living and having the therapy she needed. John, can you play it? Oh.
You, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Gabriel. Happy birthday to you and many more.
I think one of the most incredible things of this story is that there's Gabe and there's Gabby Gifford. And both of their stories tell what can happen if people are allowed to continue getting the therapy that the experts, the therapists and true physicians feel people need, and continue beyond a plateau, because we don't get better every hour of every day and every day. So thank you so much, and it's an honor, right?
That's my honor.
Thank you. Thank you.